G'day and welcome back. This is part 3 of my Kriesler 11-104 radiogram restore. In parts 1 and 2 I repaired the radio, the record player. Last time I did the cabinet, and the cabinet's looking really good. This week I'm going to have a look at the speakers. Let's have a look at these two 8-inch speakers. They've been eaten away in the suspension area by insects. And you can see there, it's just taken out all that suspension area. A bit more around here. Yeah, look, you can't sort of repair that because it stiffens up the suspension and then it limits the excursions that the cone can make. So this is the cone I've got, and it came from China. I bought about 8 of them, I think. I'll never use them. It has a 1-inch hole in the center there, and you have to measure the depth. So I think this will fit. As you can see, it's a dual cone speaker, and the center cone there handles some of the higher frequencies. It's kind of a bit of a trade-off, saves them putting a tweeter in. As far as I can tell, that center cap there is part of this smaller cone. So instead of fitting a cap, they just fit this whole cone and cap assembly. So I need to remove that. And as far as I can see, there's just some adhesive around there. There's the two voice coil wires there. So they're attached to the speaker. I think they are actually glued to the back of this cone. So I need to preserve those. I don't want to break them off. So my thinking now is I'll cut this cone around here, keep above those two wires for the voice coil, remove that whole section of cone. Then I'll be able to see what I can do. Maybe I can release the spider. I could take the whole thing out then and just work with it on the bench. I can see the two voice coil wires there. I'll keep above that. This may end in disaster. Put a slit up there. Another slit up there. Righto, there you go. There's the two voice coil wires, and we just see the spider down the bottom there. So that's all that's holding all that together now. I'll desolder the two voice coil wires, or the flex wires anyway. I'll continue to cut this bit of cone out here. I've left the two voice coil wires there, I'm not cutting around there. I can see the spider properly now. It's simply a disc with corrugations on it that allow the voice coil to move in and out. I wonder if I could unglue it. Like put some acetone or something on there, melt that adhesive and remove the entire voice coil and cone. I got some acetone in a squeezy bottle here, and I was just going to put that on the adhesive and see if it loosens it or not. I was hoping it wasn't going to go up to this area, but it's just soaked right up to it. So let's see. Oh yeah, look at it, it's melted. Okay, so I do have a spare spider as well. Okay, that's absolutely loosened that. I'll see if I can get underneath the spider. Now the reason I'm doing this in little bits is because I've never done this before. So I'm just feeling my way. An experienced person would have just ripped all this out probably. I've put lots of acetone on there now. I should let it soak, I suppose, so maybe I'll give it 10 minutes, see if it can work its way underneath. I let this soak for a little while, and I've managed to get the screwdriver under there. It is coming off, but I'm not doing the spider any good at all doing this to it. As I said, I do have a spare one, and that's coming off a bit easier. It's coming off alright with the fresh acetone on it. Alright, let me finish that, I'll come back. Gone almost all the way around, it's just that last little bit there hanging on, there it is, and that should pop out. There we go. Now that spider's still intact, and I think it'll be okay. I do have spare ones, but they're supposed to have a 1-inch hole in the middle, but clearly it doesn't, it's too big. So I'm going to have to try and use this spider again. There's the wire coming up from the voice coil, you can see it there. And it comes up the back of the cone, and then it's attached to the flexible wire. I've got to be careful I don't break that. It would mean rewinding the voice coil, which I'd rather avoid if I can. I'll try and snip it out. The acetone has melted the adhesive that's holding that little wire. I've put a bit of acetone on the wire there, and hopefully that will allow the adhesive to let go and the wire will come away like that. I wonder if I can melt the adhesive on the spider around the inside there, and it should come apart. I'm pulling it apart backwards really. You'd think I'd go in from the front. I've let those two wires go completely. I can get the spider off with a bit of acetone around this adhesive join here. I think I tore it then. Yeah, it's torn. Well, that didn't work very well. I'll use some scissors to clean up the edge of the voice coil. There's all the component parts of the speaker. I need to remove this gasket around here and clean all this up. It's a bit rusty in here. Might do something with that. And we'll come back and I'll try and see if I can put this all together. I've cleaned this up. I put it in the media blaster and blasted the rust off. I did cover this area here, but afterwards I blew it out with some compressed air. It should be pretty clean. I'm just going to make sure that's absolutely clean. So I've got a bit of masking tape here and a bit of plastic, a very thin piece of plastic. And I'll just fold it backwards and we'll make a double-sided sticky tape. That has the sticky side of the tape on the outside now. So with a bit of luck, that'll go in there, and we'll just make sure this gap in the magnet is spotless. This should pick up anything that's left, any dust or dirt or bits of metal that may have stuck to the magnet. There we go. I got a little bit of stuff there. Yeah, okay. Have a bit of paper here that I'll put in the center of the voice coil, then lay the voice coil and the spider on top. And I've got to try and get that paper in the gap there. So I'm just using a plastic pusher, otherwise it'll stick to the magnet. I needed to play around with that a bit to get it right, so I turned the camera off and I've got it right now. I used a thinner paper originally. I tried doubling it up and it was too thick. I took one out, just had one sort of round and it was too thin. This one's in the middle and it's pretty good. And I printed a little plastic plug and it fits in there. It's the same diameter here as the core of the magnet. So if I put that in there, it keeps that cylinder parallel. The red line around there is the voice coil, so that's exactly where it was when I pulled it all apart. I'm going to glue the voice coil to the spider first, so I want to tape the spider down so it's about the right height that it will be eventually. Okay, so that's in position, the voice coil's in position. Here goes nothing. Okay, so we'll see how that goes. This adhesive is extremely strong and dries in about 3 minutes, so I should be able to come back in say 10 minutes and move on to the next bit. The adhesive is dried. I can take off this masking tape. The next thing is to glue the spider down, so I'll just run a bead of adhesive around the edge here. And I'll print out a little spacer there just so I can press the whole thing down at once, and I'll just put a weight on there. Doesn't really need that. Alright, I'll let that set. I ended up putting a substantial weight on it, so the adhesive should have dried by now. That adhesive's dried around there. I've removed that center bit of paper there, and the voice coil doesn't rub all the way down, so it's good. I ended up removing these braided wires from the voice coil wires. I'm sort of wondering how I was going to do it. The original cone had little brass hollow rivets in it, so I might do that again, I think, and then I can poke these wires up and some new braided wire and solder them all together. So I need to put some tiny little holes in here. I'll use my soldering iron. I'm not sure what's going to happen. So hopefully it will just burn a tiny hole in it. No, that's a tiny hole, alright. Right, I'll do the other one and come back. Right, there's the two holes, and I've got a little rivet here. I'll try and get it in. There it is. So yeah, they come up good. The holes are very neat. So I'll go and belt these over outside in the workshop, and I'll come back, and then I should be able to feed the new braid through there and solder it on the top. The two rivets are in. I'm going to glue the center of the cone onto the voice coil. I'm going to use 5-minute epoxy adhesive. Alright, that center bit's dried. It looks really good. There it is around the spider. Yeah, very nice. It's come up well. I didn't show it before, but when I took these flexible wires off, I put some extra length of wire on so I could pull it through the two rivets. So there's the old wires just coming through now. I have some braided copper flexible wire here, so I'll try and get that in the rivet. Now this of course is just solder wick. I've pulled that all the way through and just tied it onto the terminal it's going to go on. So I can cut that off. I'll cut it off fairly high. I'll do the other one as well. That one's a bit easier. I'll put the second bit of braid in there and I can solder them to the rivets now. They look good, very good. Alright. Now when the time comes, I'll put a bit of adhesive over that and that should hold it all together. The next thing I'm going to do is glue this rim down. So I'll just run some adhesive around here. And this is a universal adhesive. It sticks to metal and paper and pretty much anything. And the gaskets can go on as well now. Okay, last one. I'll invert it and the weight of the speaker can make sure they're pushed down. I'll let them dry. I'll need about an hour or so for that to dry and I'll come back and we're nearly there. The adhesive on the gasket and the outer cone here have dried. I left it overnight. I put some 2-part epoxy on these voice coil terminals. I've also epoxied the voice coil wires onto the back of the cone. I still have that tweeter cone to put on, but I want to test it now before I put that on, just in case it rubs. I used a couple of alligator clips there just to connect this radio into it. I'll turn it on. Here it comes.
Australia 28 runs away from winning this Border Gavaskar Trophy Series. The victory would make it 3-1 across this pulsating 5-match affair. But head facing up, he's on 27. Now it'll tickle into the leg side.
It's working. Cricket's going.
Rishabh Pant gathers.
More cricket.
With officers tasing him. It's alleged a loaded shotgun, firearm parts, ammunition, a crossbow, a hunting knife, and cannabis were seized.
Well, of course, hello.
For support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Hi everyone, Laura Geitz here.
Oh, it works.
Brisbane traffic.
Let's turn that off. Yes, that is working. I can't hear any rubbing in there. Absolutely silent. Alright, fantastic. Now I can finish that off. Now that I've determined the speaker's working, I'll refit the tweeter. This is the other speaker, and I'm just showing you there was a dome at the bottom made of the same material as the speaker cone. I've got a section of the old speaker cone here, and I've cut 2 circles out on the laser cutter. And on my 3D printer I've printed a little slug with a dome on the top and a matching concave in there, and they fit together like that. I've also printed a little cylinder and both of them will fit in there. I've coated these with some water-based lubricant I've mixed some PVA glue with some water to thin it out a bit. I'll put the concave one in the bottom there, and I'll paint this with the adhesive. I'll do both sides. I'll just push it in with my fingers to make sure it soaks in. Yeah, that looks good. I've got it on there. It's slightly bigger than the cylinder to allow for the, you know, to change its shape. Alright, so I'll put that in there. I'll just leave it there. Probably only take 5 minutes, and I think it'll retain the shape. If I leave it much longer, it might glue itself in there. I've just held that down for a minute or so. I'll take that off. See how it's going. I'm not sure what's happening inside. Now, will it come apart? There it goes. Alright, so that's the right shape. I wonder if I could just leave it like that, you know, let it dry out. I took it out straight away and thought I'll just let it dry like this, but I'm just heating it up a bit with the hot air gun. I'll try and speed things up a bit. See what that's done. I'll see if I can get it off here. Oh, there you go. Hey, look at that. Wow, hey, that's good. That's rigid. Huh. Alright, well there it is. I'll put it down there. I'll see what it looks like in there. That looks pretty good. That looks really good. Alright, well I think I'll glue that on there and then glue the whole thing on the speaker. Alright, I'll glue that on and come back. I've glued that little dome in there and it looks good. And I'm going to put that back on there. Well, actually, before I do, I'll paint those two little bits of epoxy. This is water-based model aircraft paint. Or model paint, I suppose. I have some epoxy adhesive here. If I just put a small bead around here and plonk it on, it should stick itself on. Alright, the adhesive's on. I'll just drop that down there. And I think that'll be okay. There's the adhesive in there, and it looks good, looks very good. We don't want any gaps in there because the air will try and pass through it. Let it be indeed. This speaker's done. I'm happy with the way it's working. I'm impressed with the amount of treble you get from this little cone here. You can really hear the higher frequencies coming out of the cone. I had thought of putting in separate tweeters, but I don't think I'll bother. This is working pretty well. But I still have another speaker to do. Let's have a quick look at that. Here's the second speaker, and it's the same. It's got little holes all the way around it, some big ones. There's a mud wasp nest in there still, and that's eaten that away. There's been a bit of nibbling on the second cone there. Now, before you start banging away on keyboards, the reason I dissected the first speaker so much was because I just wasn't sure how I was going to do it. I didn't quite know how all this fitted together. So I sort of went way overboard. I don't really need to do that with this one because I know how it's made. I'm going to try and cut the adhesive and remove this second cone or tweeter cone as one piece. Then I should be able to just cut the cone away and put a new cone in and just glue it all back together. I don't have to take the spider out, anything like that. The voice coil can all stay there, and I'll just put the cone on top and refit this one on top as well. I used various adhesives in the other one. I've ordered some proper speaker adhesive, but it hasn't arrived. It's taking its time. So I'm using whatever I've got available until it arrives. The two-part epoxy actually worked pretty well. So I'm not going to show me doing all this. I'll just show you highlights and we'll work from there. I don't really need to do it all again anyway. The first thing I'm going to do is try and remove this tweeter. I've hit my first hurdle. I can't penetrate that adhesive. I don't want to put any acetone on it because it'll just start weakening this tweeter again. I think what I'll have to do is cut around the inside, leave that center dome there, and that'll expose the outer cone. Well, I was not able to cut that cone out. I can, but further up than I want to cut it. So I put a bit of acetone on there. Maybe I can soften the adhesive enough to cut through it. I eventually cut it out. It's ended up much the same as the other one, so I haven't gained anything there. But there's the cone that I need to get to. Once again, I need to preserve this area here where the two wires are. I think I can just safely cut all this out now and go straight up. And go around here. Okay, so I'm going to leave all that intact. Everything's working there, that's fine. I'll unsolder these again and do exactly as I did last time. A couple of rivets in there and maybe new wires if I need to. I've cleaned that up as much as I need to. I managed to free the little voice coil wires there, so they're ready to put back into the new little rivets I'm going to use. I need to take this outside, clean off all the glue off here. There's the mud wasp sitting there. So I'll take it out to the workshop. I need to put these on the linisher and that'll clean those up nice and clean. I'll go and clean it up, I'll come back. I've cleaned everything up, cleaned the basket up, removed the adhesive from here. I've attached the wires to the voice coil wires so that I can get them through the little holes in the rivets. And I've put 2 rivets in, ready to go. So it's just a matter of gluing that in exactly the same as I did last time. I used some 5-minute epoxy, put a ring of glue there, glue it in. I'll let that set and we'll come back and I'll do around the edges. The adhesive in the center is dried. I connected the wires up for the voice coil on the top and the bottom, and I've put some adhesive on there. I'm just going to keep going and I'll glue all this around the edge here, put the little spacers on there, the gasket. I've got to do the little tweeter there, and I've got a little dome for the center there. I made 2 yesterday, so I'll just put a dab of black paint on here and I'll do all that. I'll come back when it's all finished and we'll just test it. The 2 speakers are now finished. That's the one I did yesterday. That's today's effort. I have tested them.
The thing about White's Secret is he goes around here Friday, week in, week out.
And they're working fine.
Sort of way it wraps itself up. And so maybe I want to talk a little bit about your writing process now.
Arthur Root. And one of those cricketers who just came around at the wrong time to be an international. World Series cricket granted, but he started playing first-class cricket in the middle of the 70s when...
I'm happy with the 2 speakers. I can put them in the cabinet. Keep in mind that I really don't know what I'm doing. Well, I do, but I didn't, the way I did it, you wouldn't normally do it. A normal speaker cone replacement, you would have replaced the tweeters, the cone, the spider, and the voice coil. Would have been all done, brand new, glued all together, would have been perfect. I had to use second-hand parts, so it was a little different for me, but they work fine, so I'm happy with that. I'll put these 2 speakers into the cabinet now. I'm going to try it out. I was going to leave it, but I want to hear what they sound like. I've dropped the radio in temporarily so I can power the record player. The speakers sound good. I think the speakers are working surprisingly well. This has only got the 1 speaker for each side, so it's never going to sound as good as the ones with the 3 speakers, but I think it sounds good. It sounds exactly like it should. That's it for this episode. Next week I'm going to have a look at that little surprise package I've got to put in the radio. We'll see how that works. I can put it all together and we'll give it a full demo. I hope you enjoyed watching me recone these 2 speakers, and I hope you can join me next time for my next radio adventure.